MTC. Q Hyper 4 number 1. Dear Mr. Rivera, I want to thank you for bringing members of Puerto Ricans for a positive image to the American Broadcasting System, ABS, this week to meet with me and other ABS senior executives. ABS American Broadcasting System, ABS, Puerto Ricans for a positive image. The heartfelt passion for portraying more positive images of the Puerto Rican community was certainly heard by our executives. Puerto Rico. As we discussed in our meeting, it was never our intent to misrepresent images of your community, and the show in question no longer airs on ABS. ABS. ABS is known for the diversity of its characters, and over the years we have been continually recognized by multiple groups for stories that challenge stereotypes and bring different perspectives and voices to the screen. ABS. We apologize for any inadvertent offense taken and can assure you that we will continue to strive to reflect the vast diversity of our audience with respect and, where appropriate, with self-deprecating humor. Thank you again for meeting with us and for voicing your concerns. Sincerely, Victoria Howard. Victoria Howard. MTC. Good job. Let's start. MTC. Q Hyper 4 number 2. From a medical standpoint, health is viewed as an attribute of the individual. The fields of medicine and public health have traditionally acknowledged environmental causes of illness and assigned risk to specific exposures. In the past decade, biologists, ecologists, and physicians have also developed a concept of ecosystem health. 1.0. This idea recognizes that humans are participants in complex ecosystems and that their potential for health is proportional to the health function of those ecosystems. An ecosystem-based health perspective takes into account the health-related services that the natural environment provides, e.g., soil production, pollination, and water cleansing, and acknowledges the fundamental connection between a healthy environment and human health. An ecosystem health stance is a non-anthropocentric, holistic worldview increasingly shared by biological scientists. MTC. Good job. Let's start. MTC. Q Hyper 4 number 3. The strategies and responses of human populations to massive outbreaks of disease have been remarkably similar. Because illness was so often attributed to divine providence, many societies developed ceremonies, sacrifices, and processions designed to appease the gods. In Christian communities, one of the most common responses to the appearance of epidemic disease was the organization of religious processions during which clergy and lay people removed the images of saints from their churches and carried them through the streets of the community, praying for divine mercy. During an epidemic in Paris in 1466, for example, thousands turned out to watch the remains of Saints Crepin and Crepinine being paraded through the streets. 1466, Crepin Crepinine. Ironically, bringing large numbers of people together for public gatherings actually facilitated the spread of contagious illnesses and may, in fact, have worsened epidemics in many cases. MTC. Good job. Let's start. MTC. Q Hyper 4 number 4. Security should be thought of as an art, it cannot be accomplished through the old tools and techies model. An organization should not believe itself to be secure simply because it spends millions on security devices every year. The fact is that having an infinite budget and a large variety of security resources can often be more of a detriment than a benefit in many organizations. Organizations with vast resources at their command are very likely to try to solve security problems by implementing new security toys. I use the word toy because a security device, no matter how expensive or complex, is nothing more than a toy if it does not function within a greater security framework. Security cannot be handled exclusively through expensive equipment, as many of us have been led to believe. Security is not a technology, it is a thought process and a methodology. Security within our technologies is nothing until security is within our minds. MTC. Good job. Let's start. MTC. Q Hyper 4 number 5. Because all individuals matter, and because different individuals can have opposing interests, we need a rule for weighing one person's preferences against another's. If we are called upon to decide whether to expand the logging industry, and if Jack values newspapers while Jill values woodlands, we need a way to compare Jack's potential gains with Jill's potential losses. Jack Jill, Jack Jill. There are many philosophically defensible stands here, and the logic of cost-benefit analysis, which is another name for what I have elsewhere called the logic of efficiency, chooses unambiguously among them. Its position is pronounced in another principle: all individuals matter equally, with the strength of their preferences measured by their willingness to pay. If Jack values a tree in the sawmill at $100 and Jill values a tree standing in the forest at $200, then we declare the benefit of logging to be $100 and the cost to be $200. Jack 100, Jill 200, 100, We don't inquire into the moral worthiness of Jack or Jill. Jack Jill. MTC. Good job. Let's start. MTC. Q-4 number 6. There are convincing reasons to believe that education can increase wages for some, but there are even more convincing reasons to believe that education by itself will not end poverty. Education can do a lot of things, but it cannot resolve the persistent economic problem of extreme poverty felt by tens of millions of Americans. The long-standing, persistent myth that education alone can cure poverty is dangerous because it has caused schools to become overly focused on economic outcomes that will not be achieved without fundamental social and economic reforms. And the focus on the economic outcomes of education has pushed the democratic, social, emotional, and intellectual aims of education to the side. Sadly, if schools continue to be viewed as the principal path to end poverty, then genuinely beneficial educational, social, and economic reforms are unlikely to materialize and poverty in America will continue. MTC. Good job. Let's start. MTC. Q-4 number 7. Carbon atoms have particular, knowable physical and chemical properties. But the atoms can be combined in different ways to make, say, black lead or diamond. The properties of those substances, properties such as darkness and softness and clearness and hardness, are not properties of the carbon atoms, but rather they are properties of the collection of carbon atoms. Moreover, which particular properties the collection of atoms has depends entirely on how they are assembled, into sheets or pyramids. The properties arise because of the connections between the parts. I think grasping this insight is crucial for a proper scientific perspective on the world. You could know everything about isolated neurons but not be able to say how memory works, or where desire originates. It is important to scientific worldview to note that when individual components are combined, the connections between them give their whole the properties that are not present in the individual components. MTC. Good job.